Hey, folks. Hello, hello. Welcome. Rachel wrote this great post on points, miles, and bling, and I thought I'll bring it here and see what some of you have to say about it. And she was talking about her favorite amenities on board. And I know all of us, we travel on points, we travel on these business and first class flights. I wondered how many of you decide on your flights and routes purely based on the amenities that you'll get out of these. So tell me in chat about your favorite amenities on board and think about not just favorite amenities, but it has to be so good or strong enough an amenity that you decide to take that flight or take that specific route only because that particular amenity is offered over some other airline or aircraft that may not offer that. What are some of yours? Rachel kind of pointed out her big three were sliding doors, which have become quite the commonality now in a lot of the premium cabins. PJs, she prefers PJs, puts a lot of value on PJs, I suppose. And then the fun factor, which is personalization and things like that. So Virgin Atlantic comes to mind, or I think she highlighted KLM as well for the personality they bring on board. Let's see what Ayman is here. Ayman says Etihad Armani PJs in F and Etihad's Bulgari or Emirates' Bulgari perfumes. Yeah, I'm not big on the perfumes. Wow, perfume would change. Okay, so which one? Ayman, you mentioned Etihad PJs in first class and Emirates Bulgari. So if you had both of those options, which one of these amenities would you choose to sort of tilt your favor towards Etihad versus Emirates? I love Etihad's Armani Casa, right? That's the whole setup that they use with the cutlery and everything else, the blankets and things like that. It's just absolutely stunning. So I would totally, if somebody gave me the option between Etihad and Emirates' um, service levels and what you get as a product. I'm just thinking of amenities, unless it was like Emirates first class versus Etihad first class. I think Emirates first class does a lot, gives you a lot more, but I don't really care about getting like that tote bag. Emirates first class tote bag is pretty awesome. I love that. But yeah, just an overall presentation, overall I find Etihad first class or even Etihad business to be a lot better than Emirates, particularly when you think about the sort of the PJs or the Armani by Casa, just the amenities that or the setup that you get. Sarah says there's no amenity I would definitely fly a route for. Yeah, and Sarah, well said. I was thinking the same. I don't, while I tell you what I like and enjoy, there is no single amenity or a set of amenities I'm going to completely change my plans for or plan around. That's just not going to happen. I value things slightly differently. So let's get back to Sarah, then I'll tell you what I was yapping about. Sarah says there's no amenity I would definitely fly a route for, but if most other things were equal, butterfly, what's butterfly? OEA tea, butterfly tea, butter pea tea. What is it? Purple drink on. Yeah, I know what you mean. I think it's called butter. I know exactly what it is. Give me a quick second. I know the Hindi word for it. Yeah, it's the purple flower that gives the purple color, similar to Empress Gin and others. Butterfly pea, I think that's the name of it. But yeah, that's the purple drink. Yeah. So Sarah says, yeah, all things equal, the purple drink on Emirates and the butter. Oh, Air France, all flights, and Air Canada from Paris. The Insignia butter, I suppose some Parisian butter that Sarah is really putting up there. Ayman says, but hard choice. Yeah, for sure. Between Emirates and Etihad, I agree. I wouldn't fly for an amenity more than a hard product and soft product plus lounge if long layover. Yeah, and I think if anything, that if you think of lounge as an amenity, I think that would come the closest in terms of what would come for me to change my decision. Like if I had the opportunity to go and sort of think about lounge as a proper amenity, which it is, of course, then I would start thinking about, oh, if I have a long layover, do I want to be routed through, say, a Doha where I can get sort of if I'm flying first class, say I could get into the first class lounge versus an Emirates first class lounge, and things like that. So those will definitely play in my plans. But again, not 100%, but I think lounge as an amenity would absolutely make me go one way versus the other, as it has in the past with Hong Kong. One of the few reasons that I've transited through Hong Kong is one, to be able to transit and use my 2, 3 days in Hong Kong, but also just such a strong coverage of Cathay's lounge network, be it the pier, be it the other 3, 4 lounges that are at the wing, the pier. There's a couple more I've done over the years, but just such a stunning network of lounges that you get access to in Hong Kong when you're flying Cathay. So those would definitely be my that would definitely be up there in terms of deciding factor. If I was going through that region and all things equal, I'd start looking at lounges as the definite change in terms of, or definite premium in terms of how I'll decide my travel through that region. Uh, yeah, Andy says +1 for the lounge transit experience. Sarah says, then there is La Premiere for lounge, of course, or Doha or Singapore, 100%. Actually, I have actively avoided long layovers in Singapore. I find Singapore has become, I mean, as good, as amazing and stunning as it is, there's just so many. It's such a busy airport. It doesn't bring me a sense of calm when I'm there. I rather be in the city as opposed to just long transit hours in the airport, as much as that airport is equipped to give you all kinds of things for you to spend your time. I don't find uh, just the general airport environment calming and relaxing, if you know what I mean, because of how busy things are, because of how amazing that airport is as a transit destination for a lot of travelers. I just actively avoid long layovers and transit out of Singapore for that reason. I find Middle Eastern hubs to be a lot better. Um, yeah, I would. I'm just trying to think if so. Yeah, long layovers, Singapore. I remember last couple of times I just actively said no thanks, I won't, and I looked for something that was 3 or 4 hours, if not just different routing, for that reason. But yeah, Alex says I don't have any particular amenity I crave for, but I had to think I would aim for Starlux again. I flew Starlux last year and loved their PJs. Starlux PJs is getting a lot of love. I'm yet to fly Starlux, so don't know, but a lot of people seem to love their PJs. I have JAL, Emirates, Etihad, Air France, Qatar, Lufthansa, Oman Air, PJs, and the Starlux ones. Oh, wow. That's a big statement. Of all of these, Starlux is the best by far at the moment, says Alex. Yeah, that's a strong statement. About 2, 3 years ago, Polaris had the away amenity kit, which paired well with the away suitcase. And I tried to find Polaris J or Polaris that would fit my plans, but couldn't find anything. And by the time I flew, they had changed it to something else. Yeah, Polaris, like I said, as good as a product it is, I don't find it market beating anymore. So it's not something I go out of my way to book Polaris. Iman says Qantas. Yes, Qantas is something I've only ever visited the Qantas Lounge once in Melbourne, and just such a stunning space. I want to fly more of Qantas. I want to be able to unearth, but it's a difficult airline to unlock out of North America, out of points and such. But yeah, there's lots of ways to appreciate Qantas. Or Iman says Qantas, Singapore Lounge, and Qatar or Singapore lounges are nice, apart from the private rooms. Yeah. If you guys have not had the chance to go into a Qantas lounge, business or first in Melbourne or Sydney, try and get in there, try and go through that region, and it's just stunning, absolutely stunning. Sarah says, I just go into the Suites Lounge in Singapore. Yeah, fun, fun. Another post that kind of made me think about my own personal positioning on it was Emily. Emily wrote a post on Points, Miles, and Bling around flight anxiety. And I don't think I'm a anxious flyer by any stretch of the imagination, but I know several people in my family that have basically crippling anxiety, and I mean crippling anxiety, and will not fly. One of my uncles will not fly no matter what. I don't know, has he flown away out of India? He's flown a couple of times, but he would just actively avoids all kind of flying, so much so that he will drive 10 hours, 15 hours road trips within India to avoid active like flying. That's how crippling his anxiety is related to flying. Any of you that have anxiety flying? And it's a tough one because anxiety doesn't sort of wait for, oh, are you a points user, paid user, how many times you travel? You could be a business traveler that flies 30 times a year or 50 times a year and still have some level of anxiety every time you fly, particularly around situations where things are like turbulence. I mean, Emily's post talks a little bit about turbulence and why turbulence is the main primary trigger for a lot of people. But I know a lot of people have other triggers as well beyond just turbulence, especially when, say, what we were talking about, if your flight is going around a region that is in active conflict, or if you are on an aircraft that is a specific type that might have gone down in the last few days and has been in the news and things like that, those are all forms of anxiety around flying. So if you have had those kinds of anxiety, what do you do to counter it? Put that in the comments and let's talk a little bit about that because I think that's something that we don't often talk about. And I think it's also to do with, oh, I can't be a frequent flyer and then also talk about anxiety around flying because that's just one of those misnomers that we don't talk about. So I think that post really made me think about times I've been anxious, and most of my anxieties have been around the aircraft type. In fact, actually, the Air India crash that happened last year was on the Boeing 787-8 version. I canceled my Melbourne to New Delhi flight. So I had specifically booked Melbourne, New Delhi, New York on the brand new A350 Air India flights. I wanted to fly that, and the only way it was available was through a married segment. So I figured, hey, I'll be with family in Melbourne and not take that specific flight out, which was Melbourne, New Delhi, New Delhi. And as soon as that incident happened, I went back and checked my ticketing on Air India. It was the exact same aircraft between Melbourne and New Delhi. And I canceled that entire journey and I booked myself out of ANA coming back into Canada. So yeah, that's part of anxiety that was not rooted with turbulence. That was in fact rooted completely outside of my just like general anxiety was coming from an incident that had nothing to do with me being on a plane. Like, you know what I mean? It was to do with another accident with another aircraft type, which caused me to do that. And I know several people, kind of friend circles, struggled with when we had the Lion Air and the Kenya Airways aircrafts going down. What was it? The Max 8s going down a few years ago, similar anxieties. So, yeah. Katie says, I'm afraid of turbulence because I'm scared of other people getting sick, but not about crashing. Yeah. Yeah. Are you, Katie, if you saw, I don't want you to, well, I guess now you're thinking about other people being sick, so I may as well. Are you one of those that if you see somebody else puking, doesn't make you gag as well? It doesn't happen to me, but I know for a fact it happens with my mom. If she sees somebody else puking or gagging, it gives her the same reflex. And I don't know how it happens or if it's that common with everybody. Uh, yeah, Katie says no, but I'll be anxious for days. Yeah, fair enough. Or all of the craziness that we read about that people do trying to open the door while the flight is up in the air and things like that. When I read those things and I hear some kerfuffle happening in front or behind, then that thought does cross my mind, which is completely an irrational fear. Thank you for saying that, Katie, because a lot of these fears that we bring in are irrational. A lot of anxiety is rooted in irrational thoughts. Um, and so yeah, we need to be able to, uh, what's the term? We need to be able to contextualize it or sometimes just talk ourselves down from having these irrational thoughts. Right. Should we talk about a couple of news items? I'm looking at the time and we're sort of good conversation so far, but just let's cut through and talk about a few things, very points and miles in the news kind of things, and then I'll take your actions and reactions to that as well as I have been for these other topics. So the first one I wanted to talk about was obviously the first World Legend card. The Mastercard World Legend card was launched in Canada, and none other than Rogers. So Rogers. what was called Rogers Red World Legend Mastercard was launched. It's a $495 premium card by Rogers. Comes with the ability to earn 2% cash back globally with no FX fees, which is pretty decent. 10 days of roam like home days built in there. And another thing built in there is $200 Rogers entertainment credit. This comes with more sort of streaming and subscription things that you do with Rogers. And then, of course, in terms of lounges, it comes with 6 Plaza Premium lounges um, attached to it, like complimentary visits that are attached to it. And of course, that's the earning side, and the spend side is up to sort of 3% cashback value when you're redeeming towards Rogers product and services, which could also be paying for your bills and things like that. Um, you see, so here's the question. Did that card did the card benefits or the card launch impress you? Do you for a $495 card? Is it well under par, undercooked? Or do you think, yeah, it's kind of there and I might be able to use it depending on XYZ? I just wanted to open up this conversation around your immediate thought around a premium card that costs $500. And of course, it's a metal card because now Rogers still thinks it's 2020 where metal cards are still being revered as they used to be. So again, maybe I'm overstating it or yeah, or not giving it enough credit. I just metal cards don't do anything to me. Just because it's a $500 card doesn't mean it has to be metal. Yes, it does give it a bit of a premium feel, but how many metal cards can your wallet hold physically? So not a big deal on that aspect, but $495. Um, how many of you, actually, how many of you have the Rogers World Elite card, which is $0 card and comes with up to 3% cash back on US purchases, up to 1.5% redemption bonus, 5 roam like home days, and the biggest thing is the $0 annual fee card. So do you see incremental value from the World Elite to this World Legend card that's come through? So how many of you have had that card? What's your immediate reaction, gut reaction? And or even if you didn't have either of these cards, and if you had to get one, which one would you gravitate towards? I guess why? That's just sort of where my brain's at. And my personal opinion, this card doesn't give you enough in terms of an incremental value from the World Elite to World Legend. Yes, there is a $200 Rogers entertainment credit, but that's not everybody's thing. It's not such a huge premium on that because it's very restricted to where you can use that. Um, 10 roam like home days, sure, but now these days eSIMs are so cheap that it's just useless that these guys are trying to, paying 5 extra days on a premium card from the roam like home days concept or basis. And then 2% cash back globally is the strongest thing with no FX fees. But then there are other cards that do the same thing a little bit better, other premium cards that do it a lot better for slightly more incremental annual fee. We'll talk about that. But before we get there, Andy says big disappointment, but maybe it'll work out for heavy Rogers users and travelers. Yeah, I think fair statement, Andy. And as I was thinking about who is this card meant for, I don't think there's enough in this card for somebody that is not in the Rogers ecosystem to be like, oh yeah, I definitely want this card. And I'd rather be with Rogers because they offer this card and the others don't. That's not going to happen, in my opinion. Um, Also, folks that are in the Rogers ecosystem, I think if they don't already have the card, the World Elite card, that's the one that they should go for because in terms of purely annual fee and your how much you have to pay into and how much you get, I think that's the sweet spot is the World Elite card. The World Legend card might be for heavy Rogers users that are in that ecosystem already, but now we're talking niche within a niche. Um, and then how can you not, when you're talking about these things and you're thinking about heavy users, heavy spenders, uh, say I'm a big spender in premium cards and premium cards like the World Legend card or the others that are in the market. Would I rather get, and I'm also a Rogers customer, which I am, I'm not making that up. Uh, I would rather still look at in purely in terms of incremental value, look at something like a Scotiabank Passport Visa Infinite Privilege card, so VIP card, which is $599, so $600, so about $105 more, but come with annual $250 travel credit, which I can use anywhere. Still no FX fees, 100,000 scene plus points in welcome bonus, 10 complimentary lounge visits as opposed to just 6 with this World Legend card. And the biggest one for me, to be honest, the reason why the VIP card has quickly become my go-to card as opposed to the Visa Infinite version of the Passport card is the VIP card, the 3x on travel, 3x earn on travel, and 2x earn on dining is available globally. So no matter where you're traveling, whatever food you pay for, you're not paying any FX fees and you will earn 2x the points on that card if you're dining, and for your travel purposes, if you're in any part of the world and looking to pay for a flight, hotel, car rental, whatever the case might be, that's a 3x earned directly on that card. So that card has very quickly become my go-to premium card for overseas travel. Unfortunately, Canada does not have any of its other premium cards like the platinum cards, like the reserve card that come with no FX. If they did, that would totally be my go-to card. Like if the Amex Aeroplan Reserve card became no FX card, can you imagine the uptake on that card in Canada? Bonkers. But of course, that's like pipe dream. But while we can dream about those things, Scotiabank Passport VIP for me would still be my go-to premium card if I was thinking of a premium card that I had to use globally, as opposed to this World Legend card that Rogers has just launched. And again, nothing against the card and the benefits itself. I'm purely talking about the incremental value one would get for having this card in their wallet as opposed to some other card, or as opposed to the World Elite version of Rogers Red card itself, right? Because I think that's the sweet spot if I had to have a Rogers card in my wallet. So yeah, totally going with Andy's comment there. Um, Speaking of Scene Plus and sticking to them, any of you hear about the Casa and Scotiabank partnership? So Casa is another sort of service that has just launched itself, uh, where you can pay your rent and your monthly billing associated with housing and things like that. So rent is the big one, a direct competitor to sort of Chexi. If you know what Chexi does, Casa just launched its partnership with Scotiabank. The Scotiabank is now explicitly offering the Scotia Gold Passport Visa card through Casa. And why that card? Because if you're using that card to pay your rental or your housing fees and other things, then there's zero transaction fees. So think about Chexi with by using a passport card there, or using Casa to pay your rent at $0 fee. That's a really good value. But of course, you only earn one Scene Plus point with that card, so not great in that regard. But Casa also allows you to use any other Canadian Visa or Mastercard, much like Chexi, with that same 1.75% fee. So no, not beating competition there, but at least stepping up on that same platform as Chexi is. So a very strong proposition. So yeah, look up Casa and Chexi, CASA. And that's the newest platform in Canada that's really shaking up the rental payment or housing payments that we all have, and how you can use that, how you can use your credit cards to make those payments through their platform and earn all the points. So I think Scotia Momentum, if I had to be with Scotia, the cashback 4% on recurring fees continues to be the strongest way of doing it. And of course, if you wanted to sort of use both Chexi and Casa and serve both of these services, then you're still paying 1.75% fee. And if you somehow find value in getting that Scotia Gold passport card that is now being promoted only through Casa by Scotiabank, then you can. But I think for this community that looks at sort of heavy usage and incremental value, I don't think that card is the card that you would want in your wallet. So you would rather still use Casa service, but with a credit card of your own choosing, as opposed to just the Scotia Gold one. I didn't realize there was One World lounges out there. So not One World airline lounges, but One World's own lounge, One World branded lounges. So a couple of lounges that are there are in Amsterdam, and the second one is Incheon. What's Seoul in South Korea. So Seoul and Amsterdam are the two cities that have One World's own branded lounges, which is fantastic. And when you think about Seoul, or when you think about Amsterdam, you don't typically think one world immediately, but I think that is the point, is where you don't have a strong hub for your networks airlines. You have a bit of a lounge, which will allow for that one world traveler to still transit through that airport and use the lounge facility. So as opposed to expecting airlines to invest in these sort of uh, non-hub cities, One World is investing its own money. So One World has two of these lounges, one in Amsterdam, one in uh, Seoul. One World lounges. And idea is the same. I kind of had the opportunity to try out the Star Alliance lounge, Star Alliance branded lounge in Paris. And that is just such a fantastic lounge. The review is on Points, Miles, and Bling if you wanted to go and read that. I also had the chance to try out the Star Alliance lounge in LAX, which has a lovely terrace and views of planes coming in and out. It's not as good as, say, a San Francisco lounge or some of the other terraces, but San Francisco Air Canada Maple Leaf Lounge is what I was talking about. But it is a really, really good lounge, the Star Alliance LAX lounge. I'm yet to write that review. It's been sitting in my to-do list for a while. But some of the other cities that have the Star Alliance, and Star Alliance as a network has a much bigger presence in terms of its own lounges compared to One World that has only two. Star Alliance has also Amsterdam, Los Angeles, like I just spoke about, and Paris, Buenos Aires, Rio, Brazil, and Guangzhou in China. So those are the five or six Star Alliance lounges around the world. Has anybody tried out any of the other ones? I've tried LAX and Paris. Have you tried the other Star Alliance lounges? The ones I mentioned, Amsterdam, Argentina, Buenos Aires, Rio, or Guangzhou? If you have, I'd love to hear what your immediate takeaway was from that experience. But I absolutely loved my time in Paris and LAX in both of those lounges. Really, really good time. Uh, yeah, Sarah says I was at the Maple Leaf Lounge San Francisco yesterday. Always a treat. 100%. Actually, I did forget about another news item that is very pertinent to the points and miles, and we can come back to the lounge if you guys have other comments on it. Was ExpertFlyer. So if you are an ExpertFlyer subscriber, there's some, some enhancements that they've just launched. The one that to me is sort of is they have launched enhanced visual seat maps. So if you didn't know, Seat Guru, that used to be our go-to, wrapped up. Seat Guru got bought out by Expedia Group, and then they didn't do anything with it, and then they closed down Seat Guru completely. And so that was a big bummer because anytime you had to see what kind of seat you wanted or what kind of aircraft type and what layout it would be, I would go to Seat Guru. But then since late 2025, there was no single place I could go to find the best seat map layout. But now with my Expert Flyer subscription that I already have, I get the visual seat maps, which is fantastic. That is probably going to be the most used outside of creating award seat alerts and things like that in my world. So if you haven't had a chance to look that yet, there's a post on Points, Miles, and Bling. So go check them out. Other than doing the visual seat maps and bringing you more, if you're in the American ecosystem and you have your suite upgrades, the SWUs, I think they're called, the upgrade vouchers, then you can easily look for that R space through their system. It's much more robust. It allows you to look for 330 days in advance, which is fantastic. And there's a bit of a pricing change now. It used to be $99 per year. Now it's become close to, want to say, 110 or $120 a year. So slightly more for the annual subscription, but also has become a little bit stronger with these other features being added on. So definitely give them a shot. And if you haven't tried them, there's a basic free version as well that they have increased the number of searches that you can do to up to 250 searches that is available on the free one. So still a great service for you to use, even if you're not a heavy user of ExpertFlyer. Um, the other good thing, at least up until last year, that I used to use it for was to find R space, which on Air Canada, for example, to see my upgrade availability, which of course Air Canada's own system, Aeroplan's own system, does really well now with the e-ups available. E-up search is available on their own search engine, but that's the other piece that you could easily do. But the biggest and the strongest value prop for this service continues to be award alerts that you have for specific aircraft for specific dates that you're able to do that. And if you have flexibility, then you can search for a much wider window for multiple airlines and multiple aircraft types, and it'll send you your award alerts into your inbox, which you can then quickly action. So yeah, ExpertFlyer was the other one. And while we are at it, Flying Blue promo also happened, although we are 1 week out from that promo. Bears repeating that the Flying Blue promo rewards for March were pretty good for Canadians because there were 3 Canadian gateways, Montreal, Ottawa, and Toronto, all have business class availability starting at 45,000 going into Europe. So you can fly Canada to Europe for as little as 45,000. And here's the sort of quote unquote pro tip is every time these flying promo rewards are released, I find the best availability is on the last month. So the way it works is, at least for this one, for example, to give you the setup, is you have to book anytime in March, and your travel dates can be up till end of August. And when the next promo comes through, the travel date will shift from end of August to end of September. So that last incremental month that you get, every time there's an announcement, and if you can fit in, or if you're looking for availability, because that remains the biggest challenge now, because this promotion has become so popular, is the bread and butter for a lot of people in that ecosystem. It's becoming difficult, more and more difficult to find availability at these low rates. But I find the best opportunity for having that availability as soon as these cities are announced at the end of each month or the first of each month is look at that last month, the final month. So I was able to find several 45,000 availability out of all of these three, Ottawa included, which is hometown, of course, or that 45,000 going into Europe, which is an incredible value for having that. And so yeah, if you didn't already know this, then always keep an eye out for that last month of that travel window, your best opportunity to book something like that. Have a great weekend, folks. Take care. Cheers. Bye.